The Virtual Grip Network and PGRL's premier series welcomes you to the Chuckles I'm in Danger 200, presented by MC Squared Editing Services. Kenny, we're here at Atlanta Motor Speedway tonight. I'm Austin Belke alongside Kenny Kibbe in the booth with our director Trevor Greenfield in the production trailer as always. Unfortunately, our colleague J.R. Shepard was out on a work duty tonight, so he can't be joining us, but we're still lucky to have you along with us. Kenny, we're here at the new repaved, reconfigured Atlanta Motor Speedway. What can you tell us about this joint?
Yeah, Austin, so basically you can take everything that you've ever known about Atlanta Motor Speedway and just throw it away. This place opened up in 1960 and really had longer turns than it had straightaways, and was like that until 1997 when it got repaved and reconfigured as a quad oval. And now it is still a quad oval, but the banking has been increased from 24 to 28 degrees, and the track's been narrowed up from over 50 feet to just about 40 feet. So it's basically a super speedway anymore, but it's kind of like a baby super speedway. Expect full throttle action, pack racing, but handling, I think, can still become a factor, and we'll go over that in a little bit. But this is completely different with the repave, no abrasive surface anymore for the time being. So lots of grip in this place, but a lot of heat in the surface, and that'll become a factor as well. But Austin, this is going to be completely different from every other cup race that we have watched on iRacing here at Atlanta.
Certainly is, Kenny. You can see some of the track details right there on your screen. The track length is about a mile and a half. Temperature currently 112 degrees Fahrenheit, 72 degrees is the air temperature, 56% humidity, partly cloudy with about 2 mile an hour winds. Real quickly, we'd like to thank our sponsor for tonight's race, MC Squared Editing Services. They always go the extra mile to take your document across the finish line, whether it's a resume, cover letter, grant proposal, article, or content for your website. MC Squared Editing Services will help you stand out. For a free quote for PGRL fans, contact Pretty Good Racing League at gmail.com. MC Squared leading the way in editing services. You can see two of the MC Squared Editing Services drivers on your screen. They're the title sponsor for the number 55 of Brian Yazik, last week's winner, and also for the number 72 of Michael Krobach. You can see those two drivers currently trying to work together right now out on the Speedway. Currently, the driver is still practicing. We've got about 3 minutes left, Kenny.
Yeah, we do a little bit of practice left here, and these drivers have been really practicing a lot of the pack racing. There's actually one driver down there in the grass, maybe trying to practice a pit entry, which may be tricky if that, if we do have green flag pit stops tonight. But yeah, these drivers trying to kind of pick out their drafting partners and practice in groups. We saw some larger groups out there earlier, but Austin, we know how important it is to kind of get a dancing partner early on and kind of work together with them. And these drivers that have some teams, some teammates, they'll obviously be trying to work together and get up to the front tonight.
They certainly will, Kenny. I'd like to real quickly talk to the man who's sitting on pole tonight, winner of the Mahan Laboratories You Almost Finished Last Pole Award, is Rich Jetty. Rich is in the booth. Hey, Rich, you got a copy?
Yes, I do.
Well, I mean, obviously, starting on pole for tonight, it's about the best place you can be on one of these super speedway races. Just, thinking about in terms of Kenny's mentioned it, the big one at these places. Obviously, you're starting up front. That's the best place to be. But do you have any plans if you fall back through the field?
The plan is to make it possibly if there's a first yellow, and then fall back accordingly because it's going to be a very sketchy, crazy race, as I've seen in practice, and the track seems really narrow.
All throughout this past weekend, we've seen handling issues become some cause for concern, at least in the races. Some drivers having to lift going into the corners, much different than what we see at Daytona and Talladega. How's your car feeling tonight?
Oh, I'll be screaming for tires 15, 20 laps into a run. I think everyone will. It's going to be the main thing, and I'll be watching out for that. Hoping to maybe get some positions late in the run if there's a late-ish kind of pit stop and take the tires, and some people don't.
So real quickly now, green, white, checkered. Do you want to be the guy leading coming to the white flag or the guy in second coming to the white flag?
Depends if we're single file. If not, I would probably be third or fourth, and I'd rather be that because it seems like you can get a really good run and almost do a slingshot past it. Packs away from the two in front of you.
For sure. Rich, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Best of luck in the race.
Thank you very much.
That was Rich Jetty, the man who sits on pole for tonight's race. Kenny, practice is winding it down. You can see some of the faster drivers on the board being the driver who won last week and the driver who finished runner-up last week as well, Brian Yazik, then Scott Eckrich. Those two drivers sitting first and second. But, I mean, should we be very concerned about the practice times?
I mean, not really. I mean, if you looked into, some lap averages for any drivers who made long runs, that may be a factor because, like what Rich Jetty said, tires, seems like tires will be a factor in tire wear. So drivers that can keep a consistent lap time, that may be a factor, but single lap speed, not so much as, track position, not going to matter a whole lot early on, at least, Austin, but we got our starting lineup ready to go.
We certainly do. Just like we mentioned about a couple of seconds ago, Rich Jetty lining up on pole with Big Joe Hassert starting to his outside. And row number 2, it's going to be Mark Herzog on the inside and Greg O'Berry to his outside starting in 4th. Tommy Ryan rolls off in 5th, followed by Isaiah Dupre in 6th. Christopher Duwald rolls off in 7th, followed by Michael Krobach, who starts 8th. Vincent Crowe and John Wilco round out the top 10 starting positions. Chance Manning starts in 11th, followed by Shane Parrish, who starts in 12th. Thomas George lines up in 13th, with Adam Jierski lining up to his outside. Drew Carroll starts in 15th, followed by Mr. Consistency Mike Rasmus, who starts in 16th. Jeff Ward rolls off in 17th, followed by Brian Yazik, who starts in 18th. Danny Gutierrez and James Kahula round out the top 20.
21st tonight will be Joe Alberico. Next to him will be Chris Lanini. Norm Pelletier will be in 23rd, and Don Runkel Jr. will be 24th. Paul Pepper will be 25th, and next to him will be Jonathan Cogswell. 27th will be James Moore, and next to him will be Justin Rector. And the final row tonight is Julian Tesoro and our last season's champion, Scott Eckrich, in 30th. Large field tonight, Austin.
Thank you, Kenny. Yeah, larger field than we've seen in the last couple of races, about 30, 31 drivers on the starting grid for tonight. And you might be wondering how the starting grid is organized. It's based on the finishing positions inverted from last week, with, of course, the exception of Scott Eckrich, who starts at the rear end of every single field by virtue of winning last season's championship. Kenny, the lights are out atop the iRacing pace car. All these drivers got to have some butterflies in the stomach.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this race has a high potential to be really crazy. Remember, all these drivers have 0 fast repairs this season, so they have to be conscious here about saving their car until the end. It's a 130 lap race, which is 200 miles, a decently long race. So you got to make it to the end. But you also we're going to have those drivers that are going to be aggressive, want to get up to the front early, and everybody's going to be so tightly knit together. It's going to be exciting for sure.
130 laps on the docket for tonight. Rich Jetty going to be the man who drives them up to start the first one. The man from North Wales, Pennsylvania, waits to put his foot on the loud pedal. They get to the Geico restart zone. Look at that jump from Big Joe Hassard on the outside. That top line getting a really big run here as they head down into turns number 1 and 2. So far, the high line is prevailing. But, Kenny, it's all going to be down to which lane forms up the fastest. That's going to be the one that starts to prevail. So far, they're neck and neck as they head into turn number 2 down the backstretch. Look at this push here from Greg O'Berry on the top side. Pushes Big Joe out to a huge lead there. 1 car length and a half. Almost 2. Greg has to get back out of the throttle. Really tight there on the high side. Going to give advantage to Rich Jetty on the low side. Neck and neck coming off at turn number 4. Big Joe leads the first lap.
Yeah, and that's going to be a factor here. When you go into any of the turns with a head of steam like that, you can end up turning the wheel kind of too late or not enough and end up going up into the outside fence there like O'Berry did. That was very close to being huge. I mean, if he would have come across the track, that would have been a huge wreck, but a good save by those guys. And you touched on it right at the beginning there. It's all going to come down to organization. We saw in the real life race here at Atlanta that the top line seemed to be pretty strong. However, if you got that organization, you can make the bottom work. But right now, again, it is pretty accurate that the top side is still kind of the faster lane, and you see O'Berry pretty aggressive on the back bumper of Hassard. I'm not sure how comfortable Hassard is with that, but there they go. They are now clear on their own in the front.
Yeah, the first 3 cars on the top side clear. O'Berry now looking to the outside around Joe Hassard. He looks like he's going to take the lead and is going to lead this lap. And now it's all down to the number 82 car behind O'Berry. That's Christopher DeWald. He is getting a pretty big push here from Isaiah Dupre. Looking to the inside of those 2 drivers, trying to see if they can get inside of Greg O'Berry. Nothing happening yet, though. There's Michael Krobach, one of our MC Squared editing drivers. He's rolling up now. Move him up to the 4th position. That bottom line just seems really stacking up so far.
Yeah, and you're just not able to keep up the momentum on the bottom side. And that move that O'Berry pulled to take the lead, that's going to be a popular move, especially on the short run with fresher tires. You push a car way out front, and then as soon as you get down into the corner, you try to go up above them if they don't enter up high, and then just kind of get down on their door and pinch them off on the exit. And very well executed for O'Berry, and it looks like he is going to play that as his strategy. He looks like the kind of driver that's going to try and stay up front. We see the 2 strategies in these types of races: drivers that want to lead every lap, and then drivers that want to hang in the back and try to avoid all the accidents.
You certainly do. So far, you can really see all the drivers that want to be up towards the front because they continue to make those more aggressive moves to try and make themselves get further and further towards the front of the pack. But Kenny, sometimes you want to be at the front to avoid the craziness of the big one, but you might just cause the big one by making these super aggressive moves. As well, there's Christopher Duwald sliding back. Joe Hassert looking to take advantage, and that inside lane wasn't formed up very well for the first 5 laps or so, but lap number 6 going to go the way of, I believe, Joe Hassert that time by. So move the inside line up 1 notch in terms of raceability.
Yeah, he led that lap by 1/1000th of a second, and the bottom line, yeah, has really become organized all of a sudden. We got Hassert there on leading that line with Rich Jetty right behind him. Remember, he was the pole sitter. Mark Herzog's third in line, and then Vincent Crow is fourth in line. So, this is a kind of a rotating cast that we will see all night. You'll see drivers up towards the front, go back to the back or the middle of the pack, and come back and forth. But what we notice at Atlanta is, it's so narrow. It's not so easy to just make it 3 wide and make your own lane. You're kind of at the mercy of the train, of the line that you're in, and you really have to time those moves to the inside and the outside in order to make up positions. And it kind of just makes progress a little bit slower through the field as opposed to a place like Talladega where it's so wide.
Certainly does. Coming by this time to complete lap number 9. Going to go the way back to Greg O'Berry on the high side with that number 97 machine. Look at Mark Herzog all the way down, trying to get some clean air on the splitter of that car right by the apron of this 1.5-mile super speedway. Desire Dupre and Christopher Duwald looking to form up though on the high side. They're looking to push Greg O'Berry back towards the front to make sure their line can prevail once more. But so far, the last couple laps, the 2 lines have remained incredibly consistent in terms of raceability, and neither lane really pulling out to get a huge advantage over the other one. But Kenny, look at all these drivers kind of buffeting around in that wind, and they might be going very fast, about 180 miles an hour as they go into the turns. Talk about what that wind does to the car and how much you have to fight with the steering wheel.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is, the turbulent air caused by the other cars around you, especially if you have a car right behind you, and the car will sweep behind you, either going left or right. If they pull out of line right behind your spoiler, it can really lighten up the car, just causing that, that buffer of air. Also, if you get a driver that's right on your quarter panel, that can cause issues. And also, just the wind in general, if it's high enough, the winds tonight I don't think are terribly high, only 2 miles an hour, so I don't think there'll be a huge factor. But the biggest thing is the turbulent air with the group, the draft here, as cars move around and bounce around, and it can really cause issues. And the other thing too, this may be a new repave, but there are definitely some bumps in this pavement, especially on corner entries and corner exits. You'll see the cars bounce around, and these next gen cars are also so stiff, so they really bounce around. They don't have a whole lot of give, so it can make for some interesting moments. And I also want to note real quick, put my reporter hat on and say that Michael Krobach having a little bit of blinking issues. I've seen him just blink out instantaneously just a couple times, and that's all it really takes to cause issues at a place like Atlanta with the pack racing.
Yeah, you can really see what that's done because Chance Manning, the driver behind him, was kind of forced to be a good 2 or 3 car lengths back for the last lap and a half or so. Look at the top line, though. They become a bit more separated as you see Rich Jetty give a huge push there to Joe Hassert on the bottom. Move the bottom lane up about a car length and a half, and now all of a sudden the top lane comes and says, we'd like to take this race back to our side. Greg O'Berry really pinching down, trying to side draft Big Joe. You see Christopher Duwald try to do the same thing to the number 36 car of Rich Jetty. Greg O'Berry leads that lap one more time. Kenny, though, real quickly, I want to talk about your keys to the race.
Yeah, certainly. So tonight, again, it's a 200-mile race, 8 total sets of tires in the pits. I don't think those will be too much of a factor. Wear will be, but the amount of sets should be plenty. 75% fuel limits, so we'll expect not quite 50 laps on a tank of fuel, so 2 stops on fuel, but we'll expect more pit stops on than that because of tires. And my keys to the race, you want to manage your runs here. With these cars, you really can suck up to the drivers around you, but it's hard to really manage where to take that momentum. Tire management, handling can become a factor today. We see cars that will push up or get loose, as you see one driver there kind of dropping out of the draft. And, green flag pit stops, if it comes down to it, you really have to coordinate it like you do at Daytona and Talladega. But it's a very tricky pit entry here. You don't have a whole lot of runoff like you do at Daytona and Talladega. So you really have to kind of get the car stopped and plan it down to pit entry. And just staying out of trouble and being there at the end, that'll be a key thing. Staying obviously out of the big one. But at the end, with this track being so narrow, I don't expect you to really be able to pick up 10 spots in one lap at the end like you could at Daytona or Talladega without the help of a wreck, of course. So you really need to be up in the first few rows, I think, near the end in order to win this thing.
For sure. Kenny, while we were going over your keys, Rich Jetty went from the bottom lane to the top, tucked in behind Greg O'Berry. Went to try and make a move to the inside, but unfortunately, all the dirty air on his car forced him up to the high side in terms of Joe Hassert getting loose and going onto the apron. I don't quite know what caused that, but obviously he got loose, went down to the apron, has lost a good handful of spots. Christopher Duval jumps down to the inside in that 82 car, trying to get help here from Mark Herzog. You see the outside lane getting formed up extremely well here. That's Rich Jetty getting a push from Isaiah Dupre, and then Rich obviously giving that momentum to Greg O'Berry on the high side. The two drivers up front, neck and neck. You're riding along there with Rich Jetty, the man who started on pole. Kenny, he told us after about 15 or 20 laps, the tires on his car start to get pretty worn out. He'd like to come down pit road for a new set. You can see all these drivers, they go into the corner, they kind of wash up a good lane and a half or two. So obviously tires really going to start to come into play here.
Yeah, they definitely could. I found that very interesting when Rich said that, and we're already approaching, like you said, approaching that mark where he thought he was going to be worried about tire wear. And I would think that the top line would be a little bit easier on the tires, just because of less wheel input. These drivers running on the bottom. Oh, big bump draft there from O'Berry into the back end of DeWald there. O'Berry almost in the outside fence yet again, this time.
Oh, he definitely bounced off it, Kenny. He definitely made contact.
Yeah, that's the second time he's been up into the fence, and it's not hurting the performance of his car. But wow, just a hard bump draft there again into the back of DeWald there, and he's not afraid to really push the issue. I do like that these cars, though, these next-gen race cars they seem very friendly to bump drafting. You saw it with the Gen 6 cars. They're really sketchy whenever you tried to give anybody a bump draft, and you can really kind of hammer into somebody in front as long as you hit them square. So that's a nice thing to see, but we will probably see that get more aggressive as the night wears out.
Yeah, interestingly enough, it was more so Greg O'Berry's car being the one more upset by all that bump drafting. Christopher Duwald's car stayed pretty hooked up during all that. He didn't seem to be wiggling too much with all those hits, and they were pretty hard hits. If that were in a Gen 6 race car, I definitely believe we would have had the big one and probably had most of the field completely wiped out. Looking to make it 3 wide here. That's Herzog on the bottom. O'Berry looking to make it 3 wide in the middle, and then Christopher Duwald all the way up top. Right now we're riding along board with Chance Manning. He's been following Michael Krobach up through the field. 3 wide for the lead, though. Mark Herzog on the bottom. DeWald in the middle. Berry on the outside. O'Berry, that is. They're still going to be 3 wide. Now back to 2 wide. O'Berry gets a little bit loose on the high side. Gives a momentum shift back to the 2 drivers on the inside. That's Herzog on the left. DeWald in the middle. DeWald going to be in the sucker hole for right now. Forced to fall back. Going to have to regroup himself and slot in behind O'Berry. See what he can do here. Look at Michael Krobach on the inside. If this all sorts out, he's going to be the first driver in that bottom lane. He's going to have to get down there, though. Just down there. Oh, decides to be nice. He was really nice, Kenny, there to DeWald.
Now we have another group of 3 wide behind these guys. Jetty on the high side, Krobach on the bottom, and Tesoro in the middle. Tesoro started 29th. And he's already up into the top 5. A really good run for the PGRL new driver here, and he's looking for more. But boy, that was an aggressive move by O'Berry there a couple laps ago. I mean, he ended up making it work, but 3 wide here. I mean, we talk about how narrow it is at Daytona and how 3 wide is kind of sketchy. I mean, here it's just magnified, and these cars are really moving around a lot. And with the handling factor and all that, and the tire, the track temperature coming into play, I mean, it's really, really sketchy whenever these drivers get 3 wide. And right now, so far, they've been able to make it work. Ooh, one driver up maybe near the fence. That was Krobach. He's got his teammate Dupre, and behind him, that kind of stacks everybody up in the back half of the top 10. But also, I want to bring up another point here. There were 3 drivers that started in the pits. That's John Wilco, Danny Gutierrez, and Chris Lanini. they are less than a straightaway away from being lapped, and lap traffic could become um, a really sketchy thing for these drivers to deal with if that does become a factor.
Certainly could, Kenny. The first two drivers, whoa, Duvall barely gets into the outside wall, kind of forces him to check up, as well as Rich Jetty. This is back further in the field. These are the drivers, Kenny, you were just talking about. Look at Mr. Consistency, Mike Rasmus. Whoa, Chance Manning getting extremely loose there. 3 wide with Mark Herzog and Michael Krobach. Forces him to check up pretty hard. But how about this run here from Julian Tesoro? Obviously his first race, just a rookie here in the pretty good racing league, but he's already up inside the top 5. Forced to get out of the throttle pretty hard there. You look at Mark Herzog kind of giving him the right of way there, allowing himself to check up for him.
One thing I was wondering about, in open setup races, you might expect to see the field kind of spread out just a little bit, kind of a line of cars might form, and you might see those kind of mini battle packs like what you used to see at Daytona and Talladega in the early 2000s and late 90s. But I wasn't sure if we were going to see that tonight. Because of the fact that it's a fixed setup race. And up until one of the leaders, it looked like Jetty, up until he checked up, it looked like we were actually going to start seeing that. The leaders kind of started to pull away just a bit, and it really comes down to just any driver losing any kind of momentum. That's just going to bunch everybody back up. But it looked like for a second there, the field was going to maybe start to spread out just a little bit.
Looked like that for a second, but of course the bulk of the field all within about 4 or 5 seconds of each other. We're 2 wide for the lead here. That's Greg O'Berry on the outside, Christopher Duwald on the inside, and there's PGRL newcomer Julian Tesoro on the bottom. That's him riding along here with Christopher Duwald. The man just behind him is that newcomer I just mentioned. That's Tesoro. Duwald goes up to the top. He's going to leave the open here, the bottom open for Tesoro to see if he'd like to do anything with that. We'll see if Tesoro gets a push here from Mark Herzog. That's the view as the cars head into turns number 1 and 2. Now they come up to the backstretch. That's Tesoro going to give DeWald here a pretty large push. Now Tesoro getting a huge push there from Greg O'Berry. These cars very apt to bump drafting, like we mentioned, Kenny.
Oh, and Tesoro up in the fence with O'Berry there, and a little bit of a checkup. Again, that's going to stack up the entire field, and now we're 3 wide. O'Berry's in the middle there. A couple cars clipping the apron there. Chance Manning got way out of shape on the apron. You see Jetty still stuck in the middle. Tesoro on the top side now. And look how quickly things change. Tesoro was just, a set of corners away from possibly taking the lead, and then, checks up, gets up in the fence, and now drops 2 spots and stacks up the field. Just how quickly momentum changes. Ooh, Tesoro right up by that fence again. I would not be getting up that close to the wall, especially this early, at least if I can help it. And if I have to, I'd probably be letting off the gas. It would actually help save my tires a little bit anyway. But some of these drivers, it looks like, I don't know if they're just missing the entry and kind of turning in too late, or if they really do need to start letting off the gas and letting the car roll a little bit so that they can get the car to turn. But some drivers are washing up in some corners and then not washing up in others. It's not very consistent.
No, it certainly is, and it seems like they're more apt to wash up depending on how hard they enter the corner and if they're really close to the driver in front. And I don't know if that's just aero push. And of course, Kenny, we would see this if we rode on board with any of the drivers who are kind of second in line. It's really hard to see out of these cars. They have the clear tops to the spoilers, but you're still quite limited on visibility, especially going into these corners when you're doing about 185 mile an hour as you enter into the turns.
Yeah, and that all changes it. Like you said, if you get right up behind somebody, it's kind of a double whammy, because not only do you have the aero wash because you're right up behind somebody, but you also are going to have potentially a real head of steam getting into the corner from the draft. So you put the extra speed apart from the lower amount of downforce, and it can really compromise the handling entering these turns. And we're already on lap 33 here. This race going by pretty quickly at the moment. Track temp is cooled down a little bit, but it's still 106 degrees. Not really many clouds out there too, as the leader there, DeWalt fence yet again, and we've seen this almost like a broken record at this point. We'll have another 3 wide pass, but nobody has really hammered the wall, but they're really flirting with disaster as they scrape it.
Yeah, now look at Debris. He continues to get into the wall, now getting freight trained by a lot of cars as they all make it 3 wide just below him. Jeff Ward taking advantage of that spot as well. Greg O'Berry goes back to the lead, still being pushed here by Rich Jetty. And now DeWald, after being very much out of contention there for a couple corners, really right back into the mix.
One thing I've noticed too, remember we talked about the 3 drivers that were at the back of the field. It's only those 3 that are potentially going to get lapped. I've been paying attention to their lap times, and they've actually been occasionally faster than the leaders just with 3 cars. So that's pretty impressive that you can actually draft with just 3 cars and have decent enough lap times to at least stay on the lead lap for the time being. But if these drivers up in front can get organized and stay that way, I think they'll swallow up those drivers in the back. But again, here we are 2 by 2 at the moment, and so far, Austin, I've noticed O'Berry has seemed to be one of the most aggressive drafters, and he definitely wants to stay up front. DeWald seems to be kind of the same way. Has not been much of a pusher, but more of a pushee. Rich Jetty's been another strong pusher up front as well.
I was just going to mention that myself, Kenny. Rich Jetty started on pole position, obviously. Led Rich Jetty started on pole position, obviously. Led a couple laps earlier in the race. Has fallen back to be about 3rd or 4th. And he's kind of just been around that same position, kind of the second driver in whatever line he's been in. But he's been a great pusher all race long. Really just one of the drivers kind of filling out every single line he's been in and not really being a slouch in terms of that. That's Christopher DeWald. Now he pokes his nose out to the lead. He's about a car length and a half clear. And how about this run? I'm going to mention again, Julian Tesoro on that number 5 machine, that Toyota Camry, doing a fantastic job. This is his premiere in the series, and he was doing a great job. Obviously started second to last on the field. The only person that started behind him was defending champion Scott Eckridge. Scott continues to ride around in the back of the pack, not making too much headway. I think he's just kind of figuring there's going to be a big one, and he'd like to avoid it. That's Greg O'Berry on the high side, trying to get around Mark Herzog. Mark Herzog been one of those drivers up in about the top 5 for the larger part of this race, just kind of continuing to be a threat here for the lead, not doing a whole lot to get up there and punch his ticket for the lead, but obviously one of the drivers kind of there to take advantage if anything were to happen. Chance Manning, another one of those drivers now looking to the inside here of Greg O'Berry, and my oh my, how much O'Berry has fallen off form here in the last couple laps.
Yeah, I've noticed his car has occasionally had a lot more yaw in it than some of the other cars. Loose off a little bit, and I'm also noticing the field starting to spread out just a little bit. Only about 16 cars are in this lead group, which 16 cars is still about half the field, but you see the top 3 leaders, they're kind of spread away from the pack at the moment. I think that's partially because of O'Berry kind of plugging up the field just a little bit as he's kind of falling back just a bit. And also I've noticed more cars are on the bottom line at the moment than on the top in this lead group. So that's a little bit surprising to me. But Austin, we're within 10 laps for sure of possibly some green flag pit stops here. And you'll obviously see some drivers kind of coordinate with teammates and possibly some other friends on when to pit. And we have not seen green flag pit stops at the new Atlanta in any series in real life. So this will be our first experience at seeing anything like it.
Certainly is, and it's going to be a lot more challenging than green flag pit stops at Daytona or Talladega. At both those tracks, there's really a lot of room on the apron to go ahead and get that car slowed down to pit road speed. Atlanta has always been one of the trickiest pit roads to get to in real life, and that was before the reconfiguration and replay of this place. The apron a lot wider than it used to be, but it's still going to be super treacherous because look at how much more banking they have to deal with. Kenny, I think you mentioned it was about 4 or 5 degrees at minimum. And it was sketchy before. These cars are going even faster in the corners now.
Yeah, the 28-degree banking, the narrow racing groove, and just not a whole lot of runoff entering. Because the pit entry is basically right out of turn 4. It's not down the straightaway like it is at Daytona or Talladega. So it's going to be a challenge for sure. Mark
Herzog up to the wall.
Yeah, Herzog up in the wall. Looks like everybody is going to get by him, and he is going to drop like a rock through the field here. He should be able to pick up the back of the field, but these drivers really flirting with disaster, and these you know, these cars are tough, but I wouldn't want to be flirting with that wall and hitting it too much because you really, you know, you want to keep the car as aero perfect as possible. But who knows, with the green flag pit stops coming up, this may actually be a blessing in disguise for Mark if he can hang in the back here, because these drivers that are, you know, third, fourth. Oh, as we have drivers trying to pit right now, potential stack up there. Oh, that was close. We'll have to see if they all made it in safely. They were all locking it down on pit entry in Austin. I'm not so sure that these drivers made it in the proper speed.
I don't think so. They were quite still hauling the mail by the time they made it all the way back down onto pit road. You see a lot of drivers now pulling down to the inside. And all three of these drivers, it looks like, at least Julian Tesoro, he did mention this time by that he was going to be coming down onto pit road. He's slowing down. It looks like he was the only driver to come down pit road. Whoa, contact between he and Tommy Ryan as they both come to pit road. Tommy Ryan forced to abandon that. I'm sure he won't be happy. Julian Tesoro making contact with the pit cone, the pit entry cone. Now the leader of the race now goes to Adam Jersky. That's Thomas George down to his inside. Thomas George, one of the drivers that we're going to call Mr. Versatility in this series, just so fast at each and every sort of different track. Now Rich Jetty continues to be a challenger for the second position here. He doesn't look like he's going to want to come down pit road this time by. We'll see if there are any takers. Doesn't look like it.
Well, Barrico, he's coming down this time. He's towards the back of the field, coming down by himself. Oh, and he locks the rears and spins the inside wall. That shouldn't be a caution, but that'll be a decent bit of damage. Oh, it looks like he might have suspension damage too on the left front potentially. Oh man, that's unfortunate for him. He did a great job coming down, I thought, but I bet you it was when he was downshifting and just locked up the rears or wheel hopped, one or the other. And
wheel hop.
yeah, and looks like some drivers are coming in this time by as well. Tommy Ryan is going to try to come in. He's coming in pretty hot. Boy, I don't think he got it
Definitely
stopped.
a penalty. That has got to be a penalty.
Yeah, and another driver that came in, I know Danny Gutierrez came in. He was towards the back of the field. So a little bit of discrepancy on when drivers are pitting. Obviously, you'll get different fuel mileage based on what kind of traffic you're in, but this is really breaking the field up into these different kind of separate groups here. Quite a few drivers, though, still have not pitted. Over half of the field still yet to come in. Here we go. Three more drivers, Jersky, George, and Krobach all coming in. That was a pretty clean entry there. Herzog in as well. Big group of drivers coming in. Ekrich, Yazik is in. That was a pretty clean entry for most, but you see in the back there, Pelletier and Moore getting together.
Yeah, certainly not what you want to have happen to our Daytona winner. Obviously, Pelletier kind of proving to the field just how well versed he is at these plate racing tracks, and not what you want to have happen coming down to pit road. Jeff Ward looks like he's coming down to pit road, gets tapped there by Rich Jetty. Rich Jetty forced to abandon this pit road entry, as was the driver of the number 28 car. Those two drivers all kind of stacked up there trying to come down to pit road, so unfortunately for a lot of these guys, gonna have to try and do that one more time. Yeah, Jonathan Cogswell forced to abandon that pit road entry, and Rich Chetty definitely unsafe pit road entry there. We'll see what the penalty is for that.
Yeah, Jetty's still taking his service. I thought he would just pass through it and then continue on, but he's still taking service, and he definitely did not make the commitment cone there. And I don't know how these drivers aren't actually wrecking there. We've seen multiple occasions where drivers have gotten together on pit entry, but have not spun, at least on the racing surface. So we stay green. And Julian Tesoro is actually disconnected. I don't know if maybe he had a penalty that he thought he wasn't going to recover from, or he got damaged somewhere that we missed. But that's a big time player that is out.
Yeah, Kenny, I have to assume that's him getting a penalty or somehow getting too much damage to continue in that car after coming down to pit road, maybe having some sort of an accident. You see Vincent Crow, Mike Rasmus coming down onto pit road, as well as James Gahula. Number 4 car, James is one of those drivers really talented at running the high line, kind of wall riding, if you will. So we'll see if he can have any possible speed here. And Kenny, looking at Rich Jetty coming out of the pits, he definitely served a penalty in his box for having an unsafe pit road entry there.
Yeah, and Jonathan Cogswell is now the very last driver to make a pit stop, and he's going to be coming in all by himself, so we'll have to see how he falls into the draft, and he's going to stay out another lap here, so he'll remain the leader at least one more lap, and after that we'll have to see who's all on the lead lap, because I would think that the drivers who had any kind of pit road violation or speeding penalty, they would probably be 1 lap down. So once this cycles around, we can kind of go over the field and see who kind of got the short end of the stick there, because I really feel like there was multiple offenses there on that cycle. And I know that one of them, at least, as the leader is coming down pit road right now, one of them at least is definitely
Tommy Ryan.
O'Barry. Yeah, Tommy Ryan and O'Barry. They're both 2 laps down at the moment, so they were definitely 2 big-time players that got caught for speeding or a commitment violation. But leader is in, so the field should cycle around to have Adam Jersky as the leader.
This is not something I saw happening. See Adam Jersky, then Chance Manning, and then Thomas George scored as the 3rd car provisionally right now as these drivers come across the start-finish line. Going to pass Jonathan Cogswell and that fantastic-looking Davey Allison throwback, relegating him further and further down the field. Unfortunately for Jonathan, he was really caught out in terms of having to make a couple extra laps. It seems like he was trying to come down pit road. Some contact from other cars forced him to stay out there, and I'm sure he figured, well, I'm already out here, I've lost enough time, I might as well just, continue to kind of ride around and, maybe see if I can't catch a flip side where I get to save more fuel and maybe stay out a little longer, and hopefully a caution can come out. But Adam Jersky takes over command of the race. Chance Manning, the driver just behind him. John Wilco is a 3rd driver in this pack. Unfortunately for John, he's not on the lead lap currently. It looks like John is currently being scored in the 21st position. He is the first car 1 lap down, though, so if a caution were to come out, he would be the lucky dog.
Yeah, so the drivers that are now caught a lap down, you have John Wilco, Greg O'Barry, Tommy Ryan, Jeff Ward. That's a big-time hit right there in the points for him if he can't get back on the lead lap. Vincent Crow was up towards the front. He's a lap down. Rich Jetty, James Moore, they're all 1 lap down. Norm Pelletier and Joe Alberico, they have damage, and they are, looks like Pelletier's in the pits, Alberico's in the pits, and then Tesoro dead last out of the race. So quite a few really fast drivers from the beginning now facing an uphill battle, and you see the drivers up near the front. They weren't really, only a few of them were up in the top 10 during that first run. Everything's pretty jumbled up, and yet the field itself is pretty spread out after that cycle.
Kenny, speaking of one driver currently in the top 10, he certainly didn't start there. That's Scott Eckridge, the number 70 machine, defending series champion, currently trying to push Brian Yazik up to see if he can't catch up to the packs just ahead of him. That's Michael Krobach and Thomas George to the inside. Both of those cars are for position, so they're going to see if they can't get anything done here around the top side to see if they can't pass these 2 drivers, and then try, of course, to chase down the leaders, that 2-car lead pack with the 3rd car, John Wilco, see if they can't try catch up to them as well. Scott Eckridge doing a fantastic job to go ahead push Brian Yazik around Michael Krobach, and then around the 2-car Thomas George. That's certainly got to, whoa, we have a caution on the Speedway.
Oh yeah, we had a pretty large wreck in turn 1 with Don Runkle Jr., who got pretty much run over by Joe Hassard. It looks like Runkle was kind of leaving the bottom open and then committed at the last moment to come down. And we'll take a look at the replay here. But Jeff Ward, also heavy damage involved in this wreck. We'll take a look here.
Yeah, this is riding along board with Don. Oh yeah, just gets tapped there on the inside by Big Joe Hassard, forced to do a wall ride Tony Hawk style down the track on his side. Finally rolls over and comes to a stop, but certainly not the way he wanted to see his race go in the background there. It looks like that's Joe Alberico, but I can't imagine it is. No, that's the 03 car, of Justin Rector. Bunch of drivers now coming down onto pit road. This is another replay here. You can see just the amount of damage, Kenny, Jeff Ward has on that car. Those couple of these cars have got to be toast.
Yeah, he's destroyed. I mean, he's pretty much done and over with. And he's expressing displeasure in the driver chat. Don Runkle Jr. is out of the race. He is disconnected, and yeah, that's going to catch a few drivers out as far as being caught a lap down. They may take a wave around because we haven't run too many laps on the second set of tires that these drivers have, and but we do have the leaders coming down here. And I was just about to say that drivers like Yazik and Eckridge, they were kind of waiting for that cycle where the field would spread out and then they would start to make their moves, and that's exactly what they were doing coming back through the field. But now everybody's going to be packed together once again, and we'll reset here. Not quite 60 laps into the race right now. And sure enough, Jeff Ward has disconnected. Pelletier is officially out as well. So that'll be a big hit in the points for Jeff Ward.
Certainly will. We're going to take a quick break and be back right after these messages. Don't go anywhere. We're going to go side by side so you don't miss a second here under this caution. Welcome back. You're watching the Virtual Grip Network as we show you the PGRL's Premier Series and their adventures here at Atlanta Motor Speedway in the Chuckles I'm in Danger 200 presented by MC Squared Editing Services. Your top five currently: Mike Rasmus, Mark Herzog, Christopher DeWalt, James Kula, and Chris Lanini. The iRacing pace car pulls down pit road as we get ready to go back to green.
I remember Chris Lanini. He was one of the drivers that was riding in the back at the beginning of this race. Now he finds himself up near the front, and a big time start there from our leader. And they kind of pull away from the pack there. But I don't understand Justin Rector up in the front of the field here on that start. That's confusing to me.
Yeah, certainly confusing. Kenny, we've had this problem a lot of times, even in our short track racing league, where the iRacing timing and scoring puts a driver that should be either waved around the pace car or sent to the back of the field. It lets them line up first, and usually for our sake, our league admin allows that driver to either be waved around the pace car or given an EOL. This time by, it looks like Justin Rector going to go ahead and give up the ghost here and pull off down to the apron, let the field pass him on the high side. As you look at Scott Eckridge trying to peel away second position here from Christopher DeWald. That's a look back further in the pack. Earlier in the race, that was Scott Eckridge pushing Brian Yazik. Now Brian Yazik returns the favor to Scott Eckridge, pushes him back or past the 82 car, of Christopher DeWald.
Yeah, I've noticed that Yazik and Eckridge seem to be working really well together. Before that first caution, they seem to be partnered up and coming up through the field, and now they're doing the same, and I assume that they would probably try to take the lead here relatively soon, but who knows? Mike Rasmus has been strong all season long, and he's up towards the front, and sure enough, there you go. Eckridge is showing his nose on the high side. Rasmus decides to stay down low, and looks like that'll actually open up the door for Drew Carroll to give Rasmus some help on the bottom side here.
Yeah, how about this run here from Drew Carroll? As you see the outside, that's Yazik pushing Scott Eckridge around the number 68 car. Mr. Consistency, Mike Rasmus. So moves Scott Eckridge to the lead. He didn't lead that last lap, but it was only by about 0.2 of a second as you run along board here on the splitter of Drew Carroll's car. Looks like this time by Brian Yazik. Going to now look to the inside of Scott Eckridge as they go through turns 3 and 4. It looks like Brian Yazik's going to lead this lap. Look at how close Scott Eckridge gets to the wall, though, Kenny. Trying to see if he can get a push here from Isaiah Dupre. Brian Yazik leads that lap. Looking to go back-to-back here.
Yeah, I think that was a product of Dupre being right on the back end of Eckridge in the middle of the corner. And especially if your bumpers get offset from the driver you're pushing, That can really cause a loose condition in the middle to exit of these corners. We saw it in the real races, how sensitive these next gen cars can be in middle of the corner if you get pushed at the wrong time or in the wrong fashion. See Dupre there dove to the bottom, try to make something happen, take his momentum, and had no help on that bottom side, and he's going to drop to the back of the top 5, maybe even further. Does have another teammate in Mike Rasmus in behind him, but it looks like right now the top line is most organized, has the most drivers in it, and therefore has the most momentum.
Yeah, you look at Brian Yazlik, Scott Erich, those two drivers continue to pull away from the rest of that bottom line. Thomas George tucked in tow, Drew Carroll as well. And don't look now, Christopher Duval looking to make a comeback here, see if he can't lead some more laps as well. They're getting a little bit discombobulated here at the front of the field, a little bit misaligned there. It was Yazlik to Eckridge and then Eckridge to George. Those drivers kind of choosing to lift out of the throttle just a little bit, choosing to be a little bit more patient. That was a pretty hard hit there from Eckridge to the rear end of Yazzik. But once again, Kenny, it seems like that front car really not bothered at all by these hard pushes.
Yeah, not really. I mean, if they get hit that hard in the middle of the corner, I expect something different to happen. But so far, these drivers have been able to be very aggressive with the bump drafting. Also, I want to note real quick from that caution, none of the cars that were off the lead lap decided to take a wave around. So you still have Greg O'Berry, Vincent Crowe, basically everybody 19th and beyond are lapped down. So some fast drivers still, they'll be sitting and waiting for the next potential caution, and also fighting amongst themselves to get their lap back. And Greg O'Berry actually right now, he's 5th in line in the draft, so he wants to get up as high as he can in the draft to get that free pass. And right behind him on the bottom side, you see there, first car in line, Vincent Crowe. That there is the race within the race. That is the battle for the potential free pass position.
Right, and that's huge because if a caution comes out, these drivers no longer have to take the wave around, which means, not pit and kind of be worse on tires and fuel compared to everyone else. And you really just get to kind of reset your race. You do have to start at the tail end of the field, but obviously, on these plate tracks, you can drive up from the back of the field to the front pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I mean, there's multiple drivers up here towards the front that are one lap down, and they're all the players that we saw early on. And you see Tommy Ryan, he's another driver one lap down. He's making his case up on the top side, trying to get that spot. So you have O'Berry, Crowe, Ryan, James Moore's right behind Ryan, and Jonathan Cogswell's not too far behind them. So it's a real battle here that might cause some what some drivers might think as being unnecessary aggression, but of course, track position and gaining that. Oh, as we have a wreck on the backstretch here.
Yeah, Herzog into Greg O'Berry. That's Christopher Duwald involved. James Moore, John Wilco, Joe Hassert, Joe Alberico. Luckily to get no, he doesn't get all the way through it. Adam Jersky involved. Gets more damage there from James Moore just for the heck of it. You see Isaiah Dupre with a pretty heavy amount of damage. It looks like Rich Shetty comes through unscathed for the moment, but that was quite a large wreck. You're going to see the wreck starts here. It starts with Mark Herzog and Greg O'Berry coming up the track. Mark Herzog is the white car on the upper left-hand part of your screen. Number 57 car. Watch him. He comes up the track. Net codes a little bit off Greg O'Berry's car. That forces those three cars together. You see Morgan into the outside wall as O'Berry and Herzog continue to net code with each other. And Jersky involved. You see Dupre, DeWalt, Joe Hassert, Jonathan Cogswell. All those drivers just absolutely nowhere to go. You see Chris Laniti, Paul Pepper just barely making it through there on the inside. Make James Kahula one of those drivers as well. You see Danny Gutierrez just trying to slide through the chaos here. Yeah, this was a big one.
Yeah, and it started with a one driver that's not on the lead lap getting into a driver that is on the lead lap. Now, granted, um, I see, the Herzog moved up into O'Berry, and caused that. However, the move from O'Berry was pretty aggressive. It was clean, but it was aggressive. He moved up down the backstretch out of turn 2, and tried to make it 3 wide. We've seen him do it multiple times already, and that's fine and dandy, but just sometimes the aggression can just occasionally not work out. And that time, that's exactly what happened. And some fast drivers are now going to be put in the rears here, and possibly we'll have to see once we restart here what drivers are left after this one. That was quite a few involved in that.
Yeah, with only 19 cars on the lead lap, that's going to increase that number of cars that are one lap down. Luckily for those cars, though, Brian Yazik came down pit road. He wins the race off pit road, narrowly beating out Scott Eckridge for that position. Kenny, I'd like to take a quick second, though, to look at the points thus far this season. Jeff Ward, currently your leader. He's got a pretty good gap there over Brian Yazik. You got Shane Parrish doing pretty well. I don't think Shane's here tonight, unfortunately for him, but Scott Eckridge continues to make his way up through the field.
Yeah, and you see, George there in 4th, Eckridge in 5th, Drew Carroll in 6th, Gutierrez 7th, Krobach in 8th, Crow 9th, and Cody Erdman, who's actually not here tonight. He's 10th in the points. We talk again about Jeff Ward, our points leader. He's only, 42 down to 217 there. He's, going to finish 28th tonight. So if Yazik can have a good top 5 run like where he's running right now, he could potentially gain that entire difference. So, it's going to really narrow up the points depending on where Yazik finishes tonight.
Well, it certainly will. And unfortunately for Jeff Ward, these drivers do all get 2 drop weeks, so that really kind of negates some mulligans for these drivers. You're allowed to have 2 of those at the very least, and then from then on out, it's kind of just it comes down to what's your worst race that you can't drop is unfortunately what it always comes down to in these championship scenarios. The lights are out atop the iRacing pace car. James Kahula currently your leader. I believe he stayed out underneath the most recent caution, so doesn't allow a lot of drivers here to get the wave around. So unfortunately for them, they're going to have to stay 1 lap down or more. Brian Yazik lines up to his outside. He's the first car on those fresh tires. Then it's Scott Eckridge in 3rd. Thomas George in 4th. Mike Rasmus, Drew Carroll are going to round out the first 3 rows. James Kahula, it's up to him in terms of when he'd like to restart the race. He can do it anywhere he'd like to inside the Geico restart zone. After that, iRacing starts the race itself. James Kahula puts the foot on the loud pedal pretty soon, catches Brian Yazik sleeping. That's Scott Eckridge also clear of Brian Yazik as the cars head down into turns number 1 and 2. Really good push there from Thomas George to at least try to keep Brian Yazik in the mix. Look at this run, though, for Mr. Consistency on the inside. Mike Rasmus gets all the way up to the rear bumper of Brian Yazik after he moves down the track. Scott Eckridge looks to go high around the outside of James Kahula in the 4 car. Brian Yazik in the 55 decides to go with him. Look at this run, though, these guys are getting. Thomas George decides to go with him, as does Drew Carroll. Brian Yazik looks to the inside, trying to ditch Scott Eckridge. They're 3 wide for the lead. Eckridge on the high side, Yazik in the middle, Thomas George on the inside. It's all down to who Drew Carroll would like to push as they head down into turns number 1 and 2. Thomas George goes to the lead. Brian Yazik in 2nd. Drew Carroll looking to take 3rd away from Scott Eckridge as they head down the back straightaway. He's going to do just that.
That was a big-time maneuver there by Thomas George to get up into the lead for the first time this evening. And I'm sure Scott Eckridge is thinking, what in the heck happened right there? He was going for a move to get the lead, and he ends up coming out of it fighting to just stay in the top 5. I mean, the Fords just kind of ganged up on him and really put it to him there. They just took advantage of every momentum shift that they had, and now Yazik goes for the lead and passes with Drew Carroll falling behind in 2nd. And Eckridge coming in behind Thomas George there. But I'm curious to see how well James Kahula will hang up here in the front. He's got 22 lap older tires than everybody else up here. But he's not really off sequence that badly, because I expect everybody else still has to pit one more time. They can't make it to the end from here. So he's not really at any disadvantage other than the fact that his tires are a little more worn. So curious to see what he can do. So far, so good for the 4 car. Hasn't really been up front much tonight, but so far he's hanging in there.
Certainly is. We'll see how good he does. It took these drivers about 20 or 30 laps before they really started to feel the effect of wear on those tires. It could just be James Kahula doesn't really feel like he's worn his tires that much, but I assume he's going to drop like a rock through the field. And unfortunately for him, I don't feel like that extra set of tires he saved is really going to come back to play anything for in the later part of this race, excuse me. But Brian Yazik still the leader as you see Tommy Ryan dart down to the inside.
Also, from the aftermath of that accident, Greg O'Berry is still in the pits. Mark Herzog's still in the pits. Joe Assert is now 3 laps down, and James Moore has disconnected. He is out of the race, so a little more attrition at this point. Still 19 drivers on the lead lap, but only 2 are only 1 lap down at this point. That's Rich Jetty and Justin Rector. After that, everybody else 3 laps behind or more.
Drew Carroll looking for the lead.
Yeah, and he's really been looking good up in the top 5, but I don't think he's letting the laps today. But he's trying to make a move there, but Brian Yazik looking really strong up in the front at this point, but he's kind of trying to block 2 lanes here as Carroll goes down at the bottom there with Tommy Ryan at this point, and I believe Tommy Ryan was the driver unless he took... No, he wouldn't have taken a wave around unless he was ahead of Krahula. But if not, he would have been the free pass recipient in the last caution. He's now back on the lead lap in the top 5 again and looking just as strong as ever.
Yeah, quite the recovery drive there from Tommy Ryan. I was thinking he must have been the lucky dog, or of course lined up 1 lap down in front of James Kahula. That'd be the only way he could be on the lead lap thus far into the race. Drew Carroll looking pretty racy right here, but it doesn't really seem like he's understanding the finer parts of the draft and how to keep that car out there in clean air and really maximize the runs you can get from being behind and then ducking out from behind other drivers. He continues to try though and hunt for this lead more and more often. You can see he does that one more time. I believe that time by Drew Carroll did lead that lap, yeah, by about 2 1/1000ths of a second. That was Drew Carroll that last time by. Tommy Ryan now moves up to the high side to continue to push Brian Yazik. Scott Eckrich and Thomas George still in the mix here. They're about 5th and 6th right now.
And Paul Pepper's up towards the front. We haven't really talked about him tonight. He's cracked into the fighting for the top 5. And, you know, I think drivers like Drew Carroll, I think they're kind of going to school here. They're kind of learning what they can and can't do. And what I've learned just sitting here in the booth is, you know, if you're in second, if you can push the driver out a little bit extra far and hope that they kind of at least go to the bottom or the middle of the track on corner entry, that you drive it in extra deep on the high side and try to pinch them off, get on their quarter panel and make the pass that way. That way you can actually maintain the momentum of the draft behind you instead of dipping out all the way to the bottom and, you know, praying that somebody else goes with you and losing all the momentum because of not having the draft to help you. I don't think that's going to be as popular of a move as a potential outside pass. You see Eckrich down there. He's going for a pass on the bottom. Might be able to slip into 3rd potentially. But Paul Pepper's coming in will potentially help him, and this is where the bottom side could actually help and can make something happen.
Yeah, that move by Paul Pepper was especially crucial there for Scott Eckrich, because if Paul didn't go down there to help Scott, he was going to be freight trained once again by the drivers on the high side. You can see that starting to happen right now until Paul gets back up to the rear end of Scott. Looks like Chance Manning in the 54 is trying to get up to these drivers on the bottom as well. It's going to take him at least a couple more corners before he can get up there, but you see Brian Yazik, Tommy Ryan looking to pull both those drivers clear ahead of Scott Eckrich in the 70 car on the bottom. Scott charges into the corner, now draws even with Tommy Ryan as they come out of turn number 4. Brian Yazik going to lead this lap again. And Kenny, I'm kind of seeing some different schools here in terms of how aggressive these drivers want to be. I'm seeing guys like O'Berry, DeWald, Yazik, kind of the more aggressive blocking type of drivers on these super speedways, kind of Brad Keselowski-esque, and out of Scott Eckrich. And you know, I'm kind of seeing more of a Dale Jr. thing where he takes the runs when they come to him, and if he gets shuffled out of line, he's always back fighting for the lead within a couple laps.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely drivers out there that are kind of just going with the flow. Ooh, near contact there between Chance Manning and Thomas George there. That was interesting through the quad oval. And, you know, but yeah, you know, I've noticed, I think the majority of the drivers are on the, whoa, it's near contact again. This time between Manning and Pepper off of turn 2. And that was a good save by Manning there. But these cars are just moving around quite a bit. And it looks like nobody is really satisfied or religious to one particular line. Drivers are really trying to make either end of the track work. and make passes on either side of the track, the top, the bottom, or in turns 1 or in turns 3. Yeah, now Tommy Ryan finds himself up in the lead, and this pack is starting to catch up to a few wounded cars up ahead. You have Joe Hassert and Jonathan Cogswell not too far up ahead.
Yeah, Kenny, going down the back straightaway, even the entirety of this lap, Scott Eckridge was trying to push Brian Yazik through to the lead on the bottom side, but he just couldn't do it. Those cars couldn't stay linked up long enough. Drew Carroll now goes into the lead, being pushed here by Paul Pepper. That's Tommy Ryan and the 99 car on the inside. Mike Rasmus in the 68 car looking to catch back up to these drivers. Mr. Consistency, we call him. Mike Rasmus doing another great job to be up here in the fight for the win again here tonight.
Boy, and I'm seeing a lot of movement out of quite a few drivers, especially off of the turns on corner exit, really on turn 2 exit especially. I've seen Manning, of course, he moved a lot. Paul Pepper last time by moved a lot in turn 2. It's just when we get down to it and drivers start to kind of, try to make 3 wide passes and aggressive moves, that's just going to make that movement is going to just make things so much more sketchy here.
It certainly will. Drew Carroll, Tommy Ryan, Paul Pepper, Brian Yazik, all single file. Those are the first 4 cars. The first double wide battle we have is Mike Rasmus, and now make that back all the way down to Adam Jersky and Thomas George. That's the battle for, it looks like, the 7th position on track. The first 6 drivers all single file. You can see them working their way around Joe Hassard on the inside. He's a lap down, so obviously not going to put up too much of a fight. More than 1 lap down. You can see 4 laps down at the moment. 5 as they cross the start-finish line this time. 5, they're going to pass Jonathan Cogswell. He's on the apron. Another one of those drivers suffering huge damage from the earlier crash. Just trying to stay out of the way and get as many points possible.
Yeah, and it looks like these drivers have, at least for the moment, have kind of gotten into a single file line all the way back to around the back portion of the top 10, around 8th or so. So maybe things are going to calm down here just a little bit. We're approaching the window opening where these drivers could pit and make it to the end on fuel. They're pretty well close to that at this point. In fact, I think they're actually in that window now. But whether or not these drivers decide to pit or take their fuel all the way to its full extent is remain to be seen. And Austin, I might, as long as I can pit with a group, I would probably wait quite a while and pit when fuel gets down there, because if you pit really early and a caution happens during the pit cycle, you might end up being caught a lap down.
I certainly agree with you, Kenny. You cannot afford to pit out of sequence with everyone else, especially if there's a caution. I'm going to stay out on track as long as I possibly can, but only as long as there's other drivers that are going to pit with me, because otherwise you're going to lose about the same amount of time and just be dead in the water if you get caught up by these faster drivers. Earlier in the race, I made the comment that Shane Parrish did not show up today in the number 89 car. He is here, currently running in the 7th position, so Shane continuing to have a really strong run here this season. Obviously one of our largest championship competitors.
Yeah, one of the PGRL newbies this season, and he's done a fine job. Hasn't gotten a win yet, but he's gotten some top 5s. His run up front. We see a battle for the lead again. Yazik now side by side with Ryan, and you see Joe Hassard tucking in behind Yazik. Of course, he is 4 laps down, but it looks like he does still have a decent amount of speed in that number 11 Toyota. He just needed some drafting help to stay up there, but he's going to need quite a few cautions and maybe some strategy to help to get himself back on the lead lap. But it's good to see him still plugging away, trying to finish this thing out. And there's kind of 2 lanes forming here. It's kind of packing up, but it's the majority of the top 5 anyway are still nose to tail in that top line.
Yeah, I would even venture as far as to say the top 7 or so cars, single file. You see Joe Hassert continuing to pull back further on the low side, all the way up to the 4th or 5th car there of Yazik or Eckridge. Eckridge currently riding around in the 6th position. So far, the first 6 drivers, you look at Brian Yazik, of course, as soon as I'm going to say that, not really content to just kind of ride around in a single file line. Joe Hassert continues to try and hassle these guys. I'm not sure if he wants to run as well as he can or if he wants to race up there and get his lap back the old school way that Bill Elliott did when he went on to win Talladega in, I believe, 1985.
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult thing for him to do. It's not completely out of the question, but going to be a difficult challenge for sure. The one good thing he has going for him is, at the moment, there's only 2 other drivers ahead of him that are not on the lead lap. So anything's definitely possible, especially if he also is able to take a wave round at some point and get a lap back that way. So it's good to see that his car is at least in decent running condition. But we're going to start lap 100 at this point, Austin. And do you have any drivers in mind? Anyone sticking out as far as a race favorite in your mind?
A race favorite, I feel pretty hard-pressed to bet against Scott Eckridge. He's a defending champion more often than not. He kind of just lucks into wins. He's always got a fast car, but even when he looks like he's second or third best on the day, he somehow comes out in the front. But, Kenny, you know what? I got to go with the little guy, Paul Pepper. He's been doing a fantastic job to get himself up there and to play by the end of this race. I'm going to pick the 29. What about you, Kenny?
Well, I know he's leading right now, but, Tommy Ryan has really stood out to me as a driver who's he's had a little bit of adversity, so he's been used to dealing with a little bit of traffic. So he knows what his car can do, and he's been able to make passes. He's been aggressive, but I think he's been calculatingly aggressive in his moves, and that's what's led him to the lead right now. So I think Tommy Ryan is my pick at the moment.
Yeah, that's a very good pick, Tommy Ryan. Obviously, he's shown a lot of speed all season long, and this time I don't think we've seen this much speed or laps let out of that number 99 car. Then you got Drew Carroll in second behind him, Paul Pepper in third, Brian Yazik in fourth, Mike Rasmuth rounds out the top 5. Then you got Chance Manning and Scott Eckridge. James Kahula, bright green and yellow car here down on the inside, that neon green car. That's James Kahula. He's going to force these guys to make it 3 wide if Christopher DeWald wants to continue to kind of lead this bottom line here. Shane Parrish just behind him. We'll see if they make it 3 wide. No, it looks like they're going to pick up James Kahula. We'll see if that's to their own detriment or not. Of course, as soon as I say that, Christopher DeWald dives up on the high side, leaves James Kahula there to kind of be sucker-holed by some of these drivers. Now, obviously not getting picked up by too many. That purple car just behind James is Shane Parrish, and then just behind Shane is Big Joe Hassard out there. We just talked about him, currently about 4 laps down. And unfortunately for Joe, James Kahula has currently scored 2 laps down.
Yeah, so Kahula, obviously he didn't pit under the last caution, so he had to come in for fuel and also took 4 tires as well. So that is what has now put him 2 laps down. If he can get past the leaders here, he will become only 1 lap down. Now, obviously, these leaders will have to come in and pit, and Kahula's hoping that they do that under green flag conditions so that he can get at least one of his laps back. And you see in the corners, if we can show Kahula on screen, you can see Kahula really gain on corner entry. It really does show that the tires do make a little bit of a difference, even when he doesn't have any drafting help. These new tires compared to the rest of the field are certainly making a difference. And it looks like we're going to have some drivers pitting in this lap. Let's watch Brian Yazik. He may be coming in this time.
Yeah, Brian Yazik saying over the in-game driver chat he'd like to come down to pit road this time by. Scott Eckridge goes with him. Looks like Brian Yazik was about to speed onto pit road, gets that thing checked up just in time. Scott Eckridge, Michael Krobach, Thomas George, Adam Jersky, Vincent Crow following all those drivers in. Scott Eckridge, the first driver to peel off and go down into his box. Brian Yazik coming down into his box as well. The last couple times down pit road, Yazik has led the group onto pit road and come off of pit road with the lead. So we'll look to see him beat Scott Eckridge off pit road this time by, obviously riding along. This is the in-car view from Michael Krobach, and Scott Eckridge passes Brian Yazik on the pit exit. There you can see those two drivers left-hand part of your screen. Looked like Adam Jersky beat both those guys off pit road. So I think all these drivers taking about a full load of fuel, but Adam Jersky choosing to take about a half a load of fuel because they've only got about a half a fuel load left.
Yeah, and it looks like Thomas George actually won that race off of pit road. He got it out ahead of Jersky as well. These drivers they need to really get organized, and like you said, with the fuel difference there, George and Jersky are way ahead of Ekrich and Yazik and Krobach, and those three drivers are still trying to, organize themselves and get together in the draft. So, at these kind of restrictor plate-esque racetracks, it's really important under green flag pit stop conditions to reorganize after the pit stop and have good outlaps in your drafting partner groups. As Eckert shot down the backstretch, is almost
Yeah,
passing
look
on
at these guys just cutting their way up to the field. They passed about 5 or 6 cars down the backstretch that time by. These guys, obviously, with their fresher tires, Ken, like you pointed out, James Kahula, really able to hold the bottom of the track and just fly by all those other drivers. These three really taking advantage of their 4 fresh field goods. You're really going to see them gap all these drivers through the corner here and as they go down the back straightaway. All these guys, though, currently scored 1 lap down. Tommy Ryan continues to stay out on track. Just ahead up the road from these 3 drivers, you can see the 2 that took a half a load of fuel. That's the difference they have. It's about 1 straightaway here. That's the difference of a half a fuel load versus an entire fuel load. So if you're these 3 drivers, you want this to stay out. And if you're James Kahula especially, you want this run to play out. You want everyone else to have to come down pit road and make a green flag pit stop just like you had to.
Now, I noticed on the outlap there with that group with Ekrich and Yazik and Krobach, they were kind of cutting through the field, and Ekrich made a 3-wide pass on the bottom down the backstretch into turn 3, and it looked like he got his left side tires completely below the red line. And I know that from Ekrich himself, he said that they have a no below the red line rule for this race, so I don't know how that's going to be officiated, but we'll have to keep an eye on that and see if anything happens, and see what.
Well, forced to check up a lot this time by. They come off at turn number 2. That's Eckridge almost getting into the back there of Adam Jersky. He's forced to cut down low to the inside of Thomas George as the caution flag flies.
Well, it's a 2-car wreck between Danny Gutierrez and Joe Alberico, and this is exactly why drivers like Tommy Ryan, Drew Carroll, Christopher DeWald, and those guys did not pit yet. They wanted to see if a caution would come out and catch those drivers who pitted early a lap down at least, and that's exactly what's going to happen here.
This is a replay of what happened to bring out the caution. You can see Gutierrez goes up the track and Alberico comes down the track, and those 2 just meet in the middle. John Wilco just barely scooting through that wreck there.
Yeah, if we take a look like from a chase cam of some sort, you'll see, or a blimp cam, you'll see that Alberico definitely came down. This will be probably a good look at it. Alberico, he's kind of up towards the top, and on exit, I think he just kind of lost the back end just a little bit and really comes down the track here and gets into the side of Gutierrez. And we talked earlier, through this season about how good Gutierrez has been. His momentum's kind of dwindled a little bit over the last couple weeks. He was like in top 5 in points, still top 10 in points coming into this week, and this race is not going to help.
No, it certainly won't. This is the view of that caution incident from Joe Alberico's point of view. You can see back. Caution is out here. Those are your leaders now coming off of pit road, all the way back from Rhine to Lanini.
Dupre, Wilco, and Jetty staying some extra time in their pit stalls, possibly repairing some damage. But yeah, we're going to have 15 drivers at least. Well, yeah, 15 drivers at least on the lead lap here, counting the wave rounds. George, Ekrich, and Yazik are going to take that wave round, and they'll be, they won't be really too hurt. They'll have a little bit older tires, not too bad, but they will have to start at the back end of the lead lap, but they will have a decent amount of time to come back up through the field.
They certainly will. We're going to take a quick break and be right back here in just a couple seconds. We're going to go side by side so you don't miss a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Atlanta Motor Speedway. You're watching the Pretty Good Racing League as they present the Chuckles I'm in Danger 200. You're watching the Virtual Grip Network presented by MC Squared Editing Services. The lights are currently out atop the iRacing pace car. We just had a late race caution come out that's really jumbled up the standings here. A lot of fast guys that came down pit road earlier in the run forced to take the wave around so they can be back on the lead lap. Unfortunately for them, they're going to line up tail end of the field. Tommy Ryan, Paul Pepper, Drew Carroll, Chance Manning, Mike Rasmus round out your top five. iRacing pace car gets ready to pull down onto pit road here. Field now in control of Ryan as they head into the Geico restart zone. Ryan puts his foot on the loud pedal, starts to zoom away through the field. Paul Pepper getting a huge push here from Chance Manning on the outside. Drew Carroll trying to see if he can hold on to the inside line there and be the second car in line behind Tommy Ryan. See if you can use that power of the draft to kind of suck up to him. It's all up to Manning and Pepper, though, to see if they can get that outside line started. Ryan goes up to block the top as Drew Carroll goes up even more so above him. Gets a push here from Paul Pepper as they head down into turns 3 and 4.
Yeah, I'm surprised Ryan really hesitated to block that top line, and it's going to cost him. Carroll's going to take the lead here, and Ryan not only is going to lose the lead, but he's also on the line that's probably not preferred right now. There are 4 drivers down there, so it's not terrible, but I think Ryan, he really made the top side work earlier on, and I think he's going to prefer to be up there. And now he's going to have to gain that track position back as Carroll, who's been a really strong player here in the second half of the race, up in the front with Paul Pepper, who I don't think is led yet today, right behind him. But Ryan with a good head of steam off of turn 4 on the low side.
Yeah, look at Drew Carroll here on the high side, getting a huge push here from Paul Pepper. Chance Manning giving a push to Pepper, and it's really becoming another battle of which line can be formed up the fastest. Just behind these guys, though, you see Scott Eckrich, the gold car defending champion, really trying to make every single move he can here in the late going of this race to try and salvage as good a run as possible. He obviously missed 2 races, the first 2 of the season, so both his mulligans, his drop weeks used already, so Scott has to make the biggest run he can here to try and salvage just run as there's another caution on the speedway.
It looks like that one is another 2-car accident, this time between Joe Hassard and Justin Rector. Rector was the final car on the lead lap, and Hassard, obviously, he was 4 laps down still. Take a look at it here. Looked like, I think Rector just upped the track a little bit, and Hassard maybe thought there was an opening, and then the hole just kind of closed up there.
Yeah, this is a view here in slow motion of Rector just being turned there by Hassard. You see John Wilco scooting through this rack. John Wilco has been pretty lucky, obviously just kind of slapping the wall there, trying to get that car up out of harm's way, but not a whole lot of damage done to that number 62 machine once again. Looking fantastic.
And that is going to be a kind of a godsend for the drivers that had to take the waiver on last caution. They are all in the pits right now, led by Isaiah Dupre. He's the first to come in, and or actually, yeah, it was Yazik, the first to come in as well. But even though they only had about 7 laps older tires than the rest of the field, they still wanted to kind of get on even playing ground here. And the one of these drivers will start in 10th and beyond, so it's not like they're going to have terrible track position at this point. So this is good for them. And also James Krahula, he should be getting back on the lead lap, and he'll have his pit strategy also reset to be equal with everybody else as well. So this is going to be kind of a good thing for at least half of the lead lap drivers.
Certainly will. We're going to take another quick break here and be back right in time for this race to come back. Green flag racing.
This is the world's premier online racing simulation. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat from your home computer with the most realistic online motorsports experience you'll find anywhere. Race virtually in the world's biggest events with officially licensed series, cars, and tracks. From the high banks of Daytona to the blistering speeds of Indianapolis, the dirt of Eldora to the world's most legendary road courses. It's all here. And with more than 180,000 people just like you already driving, you'll always have someone to race. Ready to get behind the wheel? Sign up at iRacing.com to get started.
This is iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in endorsed series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie Supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iRacing.com.
Welcome back to the Virtual Grip Network. You're watching the Pretty Good Racing League as they present round 7 here at Atlanta and the Chuckles I'm in Danger 200 presented by MC Squared Editing Services. The lights are out atop the iRacing pace car. Candy, that means we're going to go back to green flag racing next time by. Tommy Ryan is your leader. Drew Carroll, Paul Pepper, Mike Rasmus, Chris Lanini complete the top 5. And how about the runs here from Chris Lanini and Chance Manning?
Yeah, for sure. Chance Manning, one of the newer drivers in the series, and Lanini had that strategy of kind of starting near the back and coming up towards the front, and it's kind of worked out for him thus far. But here we go. Ryan chose the outside line for the restart this time.
Yeah, Ryan choosing to be pushed here by Paul Pepper. We'll see. Oh, wow, look at that launch he got. Obviously not communicating very well with the rest of his drivers in terms of when he'd like to go ahead and launch and get that push. That's going to leave Paul Pepper basically without any help. He's going to be forced to slide back down to the low side. Drew Carroll's going to get a monster push here from Mike Rasmus. Look to the outside here at Tommy Ryan. Tommy Ryan not looking to block the high side. Rasmus is going to push Drew Carroll completely past Tommy Ryan. They're going to both be clear for the lead as Paul Pepper now slots around the outside of Tommy Ryan. We'll see what Pepper can do with all this momentum he's going to have gained up on the high side. Look at Chance Manning inside. Look at Chance Manning cutting the inside there of Tommy Ryan.
Yeah, well, he's not able to take it anywhere, though, because he didn't have any drafting help. But that's 2 restarts in a row where Ryan has gotten too good of a jump and has really launched in front of the field and then has ended up losing the lead within 1 lap. So he does have a head of steam now, being the first car kind of in the next line. There he goes. He's going to shoot to the bottom. And luckily for him, Chris Lanini goes with him, give him a little bit of help. We'll see if Shane Parrish or any of those drivers decide to try to make the bottom line work. So far, it's those 2 drivers and Chance Manning helping out as well, and that bottom line starting to form up just a bit. There you see the gold car, Scott Eckrich there is back into the picture. He's inside the top 10 yet again, trying to get through the traffic here. Less than 10 laps to go.
He really gave Tommy Ryan that extra shot in the arm to push him back to get at least closer to 2nd or 3rd place. Ryan's tires obviously continuing to feel more and more worn out. Forced to check him in front of the field. Scott Eckrich gets by him. They're 3 wide for a second as they enter turns number 1 and 2. Brian Yazik shoots down to the inside of Scott Eckrich, really feeling the power of those 4 fresh Goodyear tires. Scott Eckrich goes to the inside, is going to give Brian Yazik a push down the back straightaway. Look at Michael Krobach get a huge run on the outside. Unfortunately, he can't take it anywhere as he blinks into and back out of existence there behind the number 89 car, Shane Parrish. Thomas George looking to be a little bit aggressive here, trying to make it 3 wide. They're 4 wide, wrecking on the front stretch. Christopher DeWald into Adam Jersky, Rich Jetty, Shane Parrish involved. I think that was the other half of the field, Kenny.
Yeah, and that one was caused by, Thomas George kind of, well, he didn't leave the top open necessarily, but Tommy Ryan made it 3 wide on the high side. It was a good, clean move, but then George just kind of seemed kind of upset after that. He kind of went down the track, then back up the track, and then at the same time, he gathered it back up, but then after that, had kind of a coming together through the quad oval with Rich Jetty, and that kind of set everything off here, and huge damage for multiple drivers there. And that this is the tricky thing about Atlanta. You get these 3-4 wide situations in the quad oval. It really gives you that narrowing up effect because of the fact that you're kind of turning there and hitting those apexes in the quad oval, and can lead to some coming together issues like this. Even before it was configured like this, like it is now, the quad oval has presented itself as causing issues when packs are racing like this.
Yeah, Rich Jetty hit the wall a ton and then bounced back off it in the opposite direction of the way he hit the wall. Obviously, not very conducive to what real life physics would show. This is a replay of the wreck. This is what happens. Thomas George comes down the track as Rich Jetty and Christopher DeWald are coming up the track. There's Rich Jetty. You can see he just bounces straight off the wall, not even ricocheting, just straight back into the direction from whence he came, and that's going to be his day done. Adam Jersky with a lot of damage on the front end of his car. Isaiah Dupre coming down pit road. I don't think he was involved in that most recent accident. If he was, barely a scratch on that number 86 Ford Mustang.
Yeah, and the more I look back at this is kind of a chain reaction of events. So we saw Tommy Ryan make that move on the outside, right? So he makes a move on the outside of George. He kind of loses some momentum, comes down the track, and kind of ends up inadvertently side drafting Christopher DeWald. That checks up DeWald, which leads to him getting hit in the back by Rich Jetty, which accordions them up into Vincent Crowe, who comes up behind. And Vincent Crowe kind of hits the back end of Rich Jetty at an angle as he's kind of sweeping behind him, upsets the 36 car of Jetty, which pushes him into Thomas George. So it's just, and all of that happens within the span of about 5 to 10 seconds. It's just how quickly things unravel in this type of racing situation.
Of note, Adam Jersky manually disconnected from the session. You saw Rich Jetty, obviously, I believe he towed from that situation. Christopher DeWald completely losing his right front wheel and tire combination. So he's definitely going to be down on pit road for a big part of the rest of this race here. The field's going to come by to get 3 laps to go this time by. Kenny, I think we'll have a 1-lap shootout to decide the, no, 2 laps of a shootout to decide the winner of this race. You see Drew Carroll, will he choose the inside or the outside? Looks like he's going to choose the top side, giving Mike Marasmus the inside, Paul Pepper on the outside, Brian Yazik, Scott Eckridge complete the top 5. And Kenny, if you're Drew Carroll right now, what do you have to do to make sure that you get help from the drivers behind without being just bombarded by the drivers on the inside?
Well, there is a potential that you might end up seeing a situation where, he'll start and then drop down to the bottom where his two teammates there are on the bottom side. Kind of depends on what kind of communication those guys are having. If not, it's really difficult to call because he's probably not communicating directly with Paul Pepper right behind him. So you want to get a good jump, that's for sure, but you kind of just have to go and play it by ear somewhat. You can't lag back too far, but if you get too good of a jump, you're kind of just a sitting duck. But we'll see if he drops in front of his teammates, and we'll also see if the teammates of Rasmus and Yazik and even Scott Eckridge behind them, if they are able to pair up or get into a trio here on this restart, which I think they will. They might be a force to be reckoned with here on this short run to the finish.
The iRacing pace car makes a hard left turn down pit road, gives command of the field over to Drew Carroll. He puts his foot on the loud pedal far before the Geico restart zone. I don't think there were any rules about that, so no rules broken there. You can see just the kind of lead he's gotten, though. Paul Pepper continues to be on his rear end. The drivers behind him are quite spread out right now, so there's going to be a lot of drivers getting some very large runs here as they come down the back straightaway. Scott Eckridge looking to make a huge run here. Brian Yazik goes to the top. Scott Eckridge follows him. Huge push there from Eckridge to Yazik. That's going to give Paul Pepper a boost. Pepper goes to the inside. He's going to spin Drew Carroll. Brian Yazik involved. It looks like Shane Parrish might be the winner of this race.
Wow. And then, I kind of saw it coming. I saw the aggressive move coming from Yazik there, it was a clean block there by I think that was Pepper. Yeah, it was a clean block by Pepper. And then, Pepper going in turn ends up going below Carroll, and Carroll was just late on the move. And that's just kind of a product of this style of racing. But yeah, going to be a lot of frustrated drivers here and a few lucky and unlucky drivers as well.
Yeah, this is a replay here. You're watching the aftermath. This is them going into the corner. This is after Pepper had already committed to the inside here. I think you're right, Kenny. That was a bit late of a move there for Drew Carroll to come down the track and block. But at the same time, he's doing everything he can to go ahead and win this race here. The field continues to sort itself out on track. We'll keep you appraised here of who is the leader of this race.
Yeah, and and I truly think that Pepper wasn't moving down to make a move for the lead. I think he was just making a move only to defend from Yazik, and Yazik being right behind him on his bumper like that, it's impossible for Pepper to really lift at that point. And since Carroll was, late on the move down, that caused that accident. So that's definitely a racing incident, just kind of a chain reaction, if you will. But yeah, we'll have to see how this kind of sorts out. I mean, the right now it's actually calling Scott Eckridge the winner, and I don't think that's right.
I don't think that's right either. Of course, it all just depends on the timing loops with the iRacing timing and scoring, which drivers are called for the caution, which drivers are ahead of one another, even though he was involved and Shane Parrish made it through first. I would definitely say Parrish is the winner, but obviously iRacing going to make the executive decision here, and Scott Eckridge obviously not going to be the one to fight it. He's going to come back down to the front stretch and start doing burnouts. So I'm going to guess this is official. Puts it in the wall just in case, Jimmy Johnson style. We're going to take a quick break and let the iRacing timing and scoring sort itself out. We'll be right back after this, though, to go through the race results and interview our top 3 drivers. Welcome back to the end of the Chuckles I'm in Danger. You missed a very exciting last couple laps here to the end of the race. There was a huge wreck involving about the first 10 or so cars in the field. And we're just trying to kind of sort out how iRacing chose to decide the winner after this wreck here. This is going down the back straightaway, I believe. Looking right now at the 55 car, Brian Yazik. You're going to see Paul Pepper get a really large run here, and he ducks to the inside of Drew Carroll. And at the same time, Brian Yazik goes as well. And then Drew Carroll just makes a move a little bit too late there. And this is the wreck. Based on what we've seen here, I would assume that Shane Parrish should be the winner, and Scott Eckridge will come away with this about the 10th position. And then Scott puts his foot on the lotto pedal, and you're going to see him pass a lot of cars here. And then somehow he is the race winner. We're trying to sort this all out and not trying to say who should have won, just trying to piece through what all happened here, because it was extremely hard for us to follow up in the booth. And we, of course, saw this whole thing live play out. You're going to see Scott run through the field. And obviously, iRacing is telling him to pass all these cars, Kenny. They're all just letting him by under the caution.
Well, that's one thing that we would never know. Like, we would never know if it told him to pass all those cars or not. But that's what ended up happening is, he ends up passing those cars under the caution, and by the time he catches up to the pace car, the race is basically over. So, yeah, that's kind of what ended up happening. iRacing ended up scoring everybody based on how they came around the next time by to the finish line. It's just they weren't really in the pacing order, and you would think that iRacing would freeze the field where they were at the time of caution, but it seemed to keep on scoring them, and that's how we came to the order that we got.
Certainly is. But regardless of that fact, we'll go through the finishing order for you here. It was really and truly a race of attrition. Scott Eckrich, obviously, through weird circumstances, comes away with the win tonight. Mr. Consistency, Mike Rasmus, continues to live up to that name, comes home on the second step of the podium. Shane Parrish, in my opinion, robbed of a victory here today, rounds out the podium. Chance Manning finishes fourth. Tommy Ryan comes home to round out the top five. Michael Krobach finishes sixth, with Vincent Crow coming home in seventh. James Krahula finishes eighth. Paul Pepper ninth. Desire Dupre rounds out the top 10. Chris Lanini finishes in 11th. Really strong run for him, and a strong run for John Wilco, who comes home in the 12th position. Drew Carroll goes from being the leader heading into turn number 3 with 2 laps to go to finishing 1 lap down in 13th position. Brian Yazik comes home in 14th. Joe Hassert finishes in 15th. Christopher DeWald finishes in 16th. Thomas George finishes in 17th, followed by Rich Jetty in 18th. Adam Jersky finishes in 19th, and Danny Gutierrez rounds out the top 20.
All of these drivers beyond did not finish tonight's race. Justin Rector, 21st. Joe Alberico, 22nd. Jonathan Cogswell, 23rd. Mark Herzog, 24th. Greg O'Berry, he was strong early on. He finishes 25th. James Moore, 26th. Don Occo Jr., 27th. Jeff Ward, points leader coming into tonight. He will retain the points lead, but it'll be a slim margin. He ends up 28th. Norm Pelletier, 29th. And Julian Tesoro ends up 30th.
Thank you, Kenny. We'll see if we can't start to talk to our top 3 podium position finishers here, the first of which obviously being the winner of tonight's race, Scott Eckrich. Scott, what a crazy last couple laps.
Yeah, so that, I guess things happen there. I'm not really sure. He kept telling me to pass more and more people. I really don't know why it put me up there, but I guess we'll take it.
Scott, I'm going to go out on a limb here and in my opinion, say what won you that race was not only the track position, but probably the amount of times you came down pit road to get fresh tires at the end. It really looked like you could put that car wherever you wanted on the track.
Yeah, we were kind of trying a strategy with that previously too, where we were kind of hoping to get into a situation where we could just kind of split that last stint together, because we knew people would probably try to push it long, hoping for a caution. It had been fairly cleaned up until that point, so we kind of banked on that strategy of just getting all that time, because we were running at one point we were running like a second and a half faster than the leaders there on the fresh tires. So I knew we were going to have a decent, comfortable lead if we got out there. It's just just unfortunately those cautions, the way they fall for you, and tires being as big as they are, I think you got to come down every time there was a caution if you can.
Scott, for the majority of the earlier part of this race, we saw you kind of just riding around in the back of the pack, biding your time. Did you have a plan in mind of when you needed to march through the field and get to the front, or were you just going to kind of play it by ear?
Yeah, so we were looking up, we were having a discussion in one of our little team chats the other day about how bad Kyle Larson was at super speedways, and I went and looked up his stats, and he has a 68% wreck rate at super speedways since he started racing in NASCAR, and I think mine's right up there with his. So we were trying to just kind of be easy, try to avoid the first Malem. It didn't happen, so that was cool. But just trying to bide our time, keep the tires under this thing, and just make sure that we didn't knock ourselves out of the race before it started.
For sure. Scott, is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
As always, the LPM group, Graphics LC Motorsports, you guys up on the booth, the whole PGRL league, and what everybody does every week to help us put on this show.
Well, thank you for your time, Scott. Once again, congratulations on the race win.
Thank you, guys.
Kenny, I believe you've caught up with our second place finisher, Mike Rasmus.
I have, Mike. It's a part-time effort this season so far, but we know you've been fast every time you show up. What was your thoughts on just the racing in general here at Atlanta?
The racing was pretty interesting. The cars got super tight, and you kind of had to drive them. You had to save the tires a little bit and take care of your stuff. And it's super different. It's obviously similar to Daytona and stuff. plate wise, but the rest of it is kind of a new experience of like having drafting packs and also having to watch your stuff. So yeah, I didn't really have any strategy or anything for this race. I was just gonna try to hang on, and I don't know what happened there coming to the last lap. So not really sure how the results worked that way, but yeah, it was kind of a fun, kind of a weird race, and just trying to get my learning on for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it looked like with that melee at the end, looked like you were about the only driver who actually finished where they appeared to. It looked like you were second there behind Parrish, and that's where he ended up. Talk about that last restart. You had quite a few teammates up there with you. Did you guys maybe come up with some kind of plan of attack there for the last 2 laps?
Yeah, we were trying to get a jump on everyone else and see if we can get in line and kind of ride it out till the end. But you kind of make those plans, and super speedway racing kind of take those plans away from you. So you kind of got to just be ready for anything and hope your teammates and you can work out the best way to do things so that you're at the front at the end.
So next race up ahead is a completely different animal. We go to New Hampshire. What are your thoughts about that place?
That's going to be interesting too. I really don't know how this car's going to drive there, but I like the track a lot, and hopefully it'll turn out some good racing.
Well, a good strong run for you tonight. Coming home second place, Mike. Anybody you'd like to thank?
Just Krobach and everyone, PGRL, and you guys doing the broadcasting every week. It's great.
Thanks for talking to us, Mike. We'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.
That was our second place finisher tonight, Mike Rasmus. And Austin, you've caught up with, there we go. We caught up with our third place finisher officially, Shane Parrish.
Hey, Shane, obviously kind of robbed of a race victory there. You still get to come home on the podium, get a chance to talk with us here in the booth, but this one's got a sting.
Actually, no, really, it doesn't. Yeah, I love getting a win, but getting a win under caution and that types of things for me, I'd rather get it straight out and I'll drive the field. But I don't know how iRacing did all that or how it did. I'll have to go back and look at it. I just feel good to be at a Speedway, which is not one of my highlights, and to be on the podium finish here at the league is awesome.
You talk about super speedways not being, mostly your preferred track that you do the best on. Are you more so kind of looking forward to New Hampshire next week?
Well, New Hampshire's a place I've never been. I've done a lot of practice over the years, just not a lot of racing. So my practice, unfortunately, is really good, but my racecraft is really horrible. So just trying to learn in the races and make myself better. I'm more of the mile, 3/4 mile, 1.5 speedways are my favorite by far. So did a few laps there, but definitely got a lot of work to do to even try to get a top 10 there.
Any idea how you'll finish there? We've seen you, obviously, this league went to Martinsville. I don't think you were with us at that point in time, but, are you really well versed at handling those, short kind of flatter tracks, or is this well out of your wheelhouse, you think?
No, I like the short, flat tracks. New Hampshire is just a really tricky track, very bumpy. So getting your eyes used to that when you're running and up and down and the car jerking, loose on you, it's definitely going to be a tricky track. I've been good at Martinsville, especially Richmond, love Richmond. So I'm sure I will end up doing well. If I survive the first 50%, I should get a good top 10. We'll see how it ends up.
Well, hopefully we get another chance to talk to you. Hopefully you can, follow up this week with a win next week and get a chance to talk to us one more time and maybe just go out there and give the field a good old-fashioned spanking.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to do that. That's probably not going to be where I'm going to be able to do that at one of those tracks, but I've got a couple coming up here that I feel I have a good chance at winning. But, there's a lot of guys here that when I started, I've seen really progress really fast, and they're getting faster. It's kind of hard when you come to some of these major speedways when you don't really have a lot to work with. So you're kind of on your own. So hopefully I'll be able to bring in one or two next year, this next season, and have some help.
For sure. Shane, before I let you go, who do you need to thank before you get out of here?
Well, I want to thank PGRL for, the great league. I want to thank you all up there in the booth. My sponsor, Jordan Racing. He's we're helping me on my truck right now. Can't wait to get that done. Hopefully here in the next month or so, we'll have that on the road. But just want to thank my sponsor there, and just thank everybody, all the racers in the league, for letting me come in and race. and congratulate Scott on the win. Good job, Scott. Sorry, Brian, and a couple of you guys up front that got in that last lap wreck. I know that had to sting a lot more than any of the rest of us.
Well, thank you, Shane. Probably the classiest interview we've had all season. Congratulations on your run tonight, buddy.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week and be safe.
Thank you. You too. That was Shane Parrish, comes home tonight in the 3rd position. And Kenny, that was a crazy race, probably the craziest race we've seen all season.
Yeah, but it's not like it wasn't expected. We came in here with a lot of unknowns, and the great equalizer of the draft, and with this style of racing, it didn't disappoint, that's for sure. But the more things are different, the more they stay the same, as Scott Eckrich somehow is able to come away with a victory. I'm sure he was going to be happy with just a top 5 or so, but coming away with a victory, that's huge against the rest of the field, who were hoping to really put some points in between them and Eckrich moving forward, but that didn't happen tonight.
It certainly did. We talked about Scott Eckrich always somehow coming away with the win in these races, and he does it again. I'm not quite sure how, but once again, we call Scott Eckrich to come home and win one of these things. Once again, I just want to thank our sponsor, MC Squared Editing Services. We'll always go the extra mile to take your document across the finish line, whether it's a resume, cover letter, grant proposal, article, or content for your website. MC Squared Editing Services will help you stand out against everyone else. For a free quote for PGRL fans, you can contact prettygoodracingleague@gmail.com. MC Squared leading the way in editing services. The next PGRL broadcast is going to be next Tuesday, July 19th from New Hampshire Motor Speedway at 8:50 p.m. Gonna have us some lobster. The next Virtual Grip Network broadcast is going to be this Friday, July 15th, where the BRL Dirt Street Stock Series takes on I-55 Speedway. That goes live at 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time. Once again, I'm Austin Belkey. Alongside me in the booth was Kenny Kibbe. Our director was Trevor Greenfield in a production trailer. This has been a pretty good production of the Virtual Grip Network. Thank you so much for watching, and good night.